Hello!
Hello, AOS fans!
It's the agents of Deathgorge?
Deathgorge. Or, as I shall be referring to it from now on, Deathgorge.
Deathgorge. Already got a new name for it, doesn't take us long these days.
Hey!
Deathgorge.
Hey, what'd you say?
We're just going to give our quick update on what GW's released so far and our opinions on it wherever that counts.
Very little.
Yeah, and my first opinion on it is I think this is possibly the worst named season so far.
Hey?
Yeah, I know.
What?
I said it's the worst named season so far.
Oh.
Considering it's to do with ice and snow, to come up with a name like Deathgorge, it's just pants. And I know it shouldn't matter, but it bugs me when they do this kind of thing. It's like it's the key thing, and it's like you just rolled 2 dice on a random name generator table.
It does feel like a Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay used to do like a big sheet of like a D1000 and you just rolled. It does feel like.
It's just like, oh, what have we got? We've got evil highway
Ditch.
or whatever. Yeah, it's just...
They're actually Chasm, Deathgorge.
They're pretty close.
Pretty much
and Chasm's probably the second worst named season in my mind.
Anyway, so Deathgorge will be live at some point in the future. I think they normally come out around the end of September.
Yeah, you're usually pre-order near end of September for beginning of October, so it won't be in time for Agents Con, which is not a bad thing really. It'll give us all a chance to get our final hurrahs out of the way of Weird Hollow.
Weird Hollow.
And they haven't really told us a lot. We know it's based in this icy, sort of snowy zone, which doesn't really affect the game at all. So we didn't bother really learning very much about the
Southern Gur.
Yeah, Southern Gur.
Antarctic Gur.
Nice. And it matters so little in response to the whole game, and that we didn't even bother learning about it.
I don't know. There's going to be like icy hexes that they could slip on or something and slide into them.
Automatic, stagger hexes be icy.
Yeah.
And that brings me on to an interesting thing I already noticed is that in this promo shots, this could just be something people have missed out, but you can't see those extra stagger hexes that they're normally left seating off to one side of the board or on any of the presentations of the board. So is that just an omission, or have they just got rid of it?
Certainly, snare hexes are rubbish and almost never get used. So it wouldn't be the end of the world if they weren't in the game.
It would make it a bit interesting for like Fearsome Fortress and so on, though.
Well, that's true. They would be less good, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
So we had a little bit of a sweepstake in the Agents of Sigmar back rooms on the Discord, which you can join if you sign up to our Patreon account. You can come and join us in the Discord. We had a bit of a sweepstake on what the warbands would be.
Yep.
And there was quite a lot of sort of vocal support for a Slaanesh warband being in the new box.
Yep.
And we got one.
We did.
I don't think I expected it to be Demons of Slaanesh, though.
No, and I'm quite surprised it's only 3 fighters as well.
Yeah, that was the Slaanesh. You always think more bodies the better, really, don't you?
Yeah, well, yeah, normally it's a Slaanesh thing.
Yeah.
I'd say the main big Slaanesh daddy demon thing, who's the leader of that group, he looks a bit nurgly for me.
He does look like he's been moonlighting for the other side, which again is a very Slaanesh thing to do.
That is very true.
But nobody's guessed another Idoneth Deepkin warband.
No.
I think there's a few shouts out for sort of Silverneth, I think, but nobody had gone for Deepkin, which is fair enough. They're not that, but they were popular in their day, I think, the Deepkin, but mainly because of the crab.
Yeah.
So I was quite surprised to see the back. And of course, they do have an octopus.
They have an octopus, or I think it's actually a squid, because I think it's got more than 8. So I think it's a squid.
A squid.
I'm not massively excited by either warband. Most seasons, there's usually at least one warband that I think, I like that. Neither of these two are really grabbing me very much. I don't know about you.
Not even the Slaanesh ones.
No.
Grabbing there. I think they are interesting. I think they feel quite similar to me. I know they're not really, but they just feel a bit
elves.
Like you can sort of both do them.
Got a history.
Yeah, exactly. You can sort of. Both of them have kind of slightly pale grey flesh tones. It feels like they feel a bit samey. I personally was hoping for a new Dwarf warband or Cities of Sigmar.
Bring back Dwarves, yes, and we're still waiting on that Cities of Sigmar warband that we saw
teasing it.
all the way back
come
in
out
the novel.
surely at some point. The Destruction warband next, so it's not going to be until the end of Deathgorge. If nothing else, because we do know it's a Destruction warband next.
Another thing about that is that neither of the warbands seem to have a very ice theme about them. Yeah. Like the elves, the watery elves, they're kind of like they're just about water and ice.
It's a nightmare for them, really.
And Slaanesh, I mean, they're going to be poking
out. Go for a swim, dear.
Clonk.
Yeah.
And the Slaanesh is like ice Slaanesh. I mean, I guess a little bit, but I don't really see the connection there.
Ice in your cod piece, kind of thing.
Yeah.
My only slight concern about this is that do you feel like you're suffering a little bit from new core box fatigue?
Yeah, I have to admit.
I usually feel like Weird Hollow has only just arrived, and we kind of especially with the summer, so we haven't played quite so much with the summer. I feel like I've barely got my head round the Piles of Prophecy
Yeah.
And even the whole box, and suddenly we've got a new box.
I definitely felt like, oh, it's another one. And I mean, with Weird Hollow, I don't know why, but with Weird Hollow, just like, oh, excellent. It's the next bit of the whole Nullwood sort of expansion. But this one, it's like, and we're starting again.
Yeah.
And it's just...
Got 2 more Warbands, 2 more Rivals decks, which is quite cool. I quite like that. But then we might have to see whether they're going to start cycling some out, because we're going to have an awful lot of Rivals decks soon. I don't know whether they will cycle them out, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, there's definitely a feeling that 6 monthly release cycles for core boxes is just a bit much.
Yeah, this just feels like it's quite a lot, and then I feel like another 6 months down the line it's going to be even
another
more.
one,
yeah,
and even more than that. So there's definitely starting to feel a bit like Season 3 with Beastgrave, Chasm. It's starting to get a bit much again, and maybe they need to slow down a little bit.
Not sure they will though.
No.
I mean, the models are quite nice. I know you're not overly keen on them. I think they're pretty funky. What's the Slaanesh Warband called?
The Slaanesh Warband are called the Thricefold Discord.
Okay.
Not quite as bad as our Discord, but... And there's obviously a caster in there who isn't the leader, because the big lad, who's called Vexmore, he's the leader of the group, so interesting one.
Yeah, I do like the caster model.
Vexmore is also a caster, looking at the card that they previewed.
Okay. Oh, well, maybe they're both casters.
Yeah, so it could be that you've got multiple casters in this warband. From all we've seen of Vexmore when he's inspired, he's got a movement of 3, 2 shields and 5 wounds.
That's pretty tasty.
He's quite tough.
Uber Stormcast, especially with that weapon profile of a range 2 weapon, which is 2 hammers and 3 damage.
Yeah, that's pretty tasty.
We haven't got any hint of what their Inspire condition is going to be.
No.
But he also got a special ability.
The Locus of Indolence, which is a -1 damage to a minimum of 1 to attack actions that target this fighter if there are no successes in the fighter's defense roll. So even when you're losing, you're kind of winning a bit.
Yeah, kind of interesting.
What that's going to mean is I'm always going to roll 1 shield when I wanted 2. And I'll still not get the -1 damage, and I'll still die every time.
I quite like them. They're not my favourite, but I quite like them, and they're quite. I think they're quite unique to the game, which I do like. And the bases look quite funky. They're not too fiddly.
No.
I kind of like.
But oddly, also the bases aren't particularly icy.
No, they're sandy.
They're sandy. And then the other warband, which we weren't particularly expecting, but we got,
was the Deepkin, and that's Kyreni's Razors.
Ooh, 4-fighter warband rather than a 5, because the previous ones were a 5-fighter, but they had the fish.
The fish. Yep. This playing this game might be a close shave. So is that a squid or an octopus?
I think that's a squid. So it looks
I'm
more
not
Swedish.
overly keen on creatures in my warbands. I know people love them, but we're interested to see what he does.
Yeah.
We've got another caster.
Yeah, we've definitely got another caster in the leader, which is Kyreni.
Yeah.
And the other two are fairly basic, just sort of those dudes without eyes. I think they were thralls, and they've just got the big two-handed scythe things, but neither of them have range attacks, so it doesn't look like there's any range in this warband.
They look like they've got some sort of tidal inspire condition again, because on Kyreni's card it says tidal at the end of the round, uninspire this fighter. So I assume it'll be at the end of end of the first round, inspire them. End of the round, uninspire them.
Could be, something like that. Unless there's a way to inspire him in the first round or something, but I guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
From the card, we can see when he's inspired, he's a level 2 wizard, and he moves 5, has a 1 shield and 4 wounds, which is average for a caster.
Yeah, it's not bad. Movement 5, so a lot more mobile apparently than the
Slaanesh, which are normally the ones that are the fast ones.
No proper attack, or no physical attack.
No.
Just a spell attack. Lightnings, which is pretty good. Range 2, only range 2 very interestingly.
But 2 damage.
2 damage, so
which isn't bad for a range attack.
It's not bad for a spell attack, but that's all they've got.
Yes.
So no supports needed. So you're not going to be using the octopus to get supports or the squid to get supports.
No.
You don't need him for that attack anyway. But he has got his Hammer Tide.
Hammer Tide. Oh, possibly the best ability name in the game right now.
Absolutely.
We can't quite make it all out because there's a model in the way, but we think that basically you put the scatter hex on him and then you roll for scatter and then you draw a line, and possibly one or maybe all enemy fighters would take a damage and get staggered.
Yeah, it's an action though. I'm not a great fan of actions.
And it's
I'm not a great fan of actions.
I don't like actions.
Sit around.
I just pass. Have tea. Have a biscuit.
Yeah. No, I'm not a fan of actions that don't do much, and this kind of feels like it could do absolutely nothing, and that's an activation card. And when you've got only 12 activations in the whole game,
they matter.
Yeah.
That might be better if you're up against your Sepulchre Guard or your Gits or something like where it's almost like I can't miss.
Yeah.
or you can at least get enough targets in position where you've got the hammers.
Yeah.
But yes, it is still very random, so you know that when you don't want it, you're going to roll that crit and it's going to go off in the wrong direction and not hit anything.
Absolutely. You're not at all bitter about playing this game for so many years.
No.
Happening every week.
It's not got to me yet. So those are the only things we know about the fighter studio. We haven't released anything else yet, but we know there are a 4-fighter and a 3-fighter warband. Obviously, the elves are going to be dead quick, and the Slaanesh ones are going to be oddly a little bit slower.
I don't know whether the other ones with the sort of snaky legs and things, whether they could be faster.
True.
But obviously, the main guy is a bit of a. But he's had a few pies.
He's big, so I guess it stands to reason that he's going to be a bit slower. Again, the bases look like they're kind of either very generically grey and boring or sort of slightly sea-themed, but I guess that's a bit more likely to happen for these guys.
Yeah, should we look at the cards? So we've got 4 new decks. Well, we know we've got the Thricefold, Deathgorge and the Kyreni's Razor. Their own decks that go with them.
The Warband icons are getting much better as the seasons go on. I mean, I remember back to the days of Scritch and his 3 baguettes. And then now you've got like Kyreni's Razors. That is a fantastic looking little image.
Yeah.
But yeah, Scritch and his 3 baguettes is just sitting there looking a little bit miffed by this.
We've got the Force of Frost Rivals deck, which I quite like the logo of. And that's kind of themed, I guess, around Deathgorge. But Breakneck Slaughter, maybe not so much unless you're breaking your neck on the ice, I suppose.
Yeah, it could be just falling over. It's just loads of cards about people randomly slipping over and breaking their coccyx on the floor.
If you know one, you can put a banana on the ice.
And again, like you say, Force of Frost is a bit more in theme, but Breakneck Slaughter it could be anywhere really, apart from the icon looking maybe a bit icy.
Yeah, I assume they'll dovetail with the warbands that come in the box, but we don't actually know that.
Yeah.
Have to wait and see.
The Breakneck one, I mean, that looks more to be like your Tooth and Claw, maybe.
Feels like it is, doesn't it? Yeah.
Force of Frost could be a bit more magic-y, potentially.
Yeah,
but
or control-y, keeping people away, that kind of thing.
Yeah, possibly. Could be about creating ice walls and stuff like that, but yeah, no idea.
There were a few cards, we didn't show very many cards, but there are a few cards from those decks. I assume they're from the Warband decks. We've got an interesting keyword, which is named as a sing again.
Yep.
We've got a Temptation.
Temptation.
Higher and higher.
Temptation.
So this is a good box from that perspective.
Yeah, there's lots of singing potentials here.
Temptation is kind of interesting. It's a ploy. I assume it must be so. It is a Slaanesh ploy. You can see that there. So you pick an opponent with 1 or more power cards in their hand, and that player picks one of the following. And they can either choose that everybody plays an upgrade from their hand, basically.
For no glory,
or they have to throw away 2 cards. So I feel like it's a bit underpowered. I feel like everybody's basically just going to play an upgrade.
But it is a potentially good situation if you've got an upgrade in your hand, you haven't got the glory to play it, to then force your opponent to effectively give you the chance to put that upgrade on.
I suppose so. It's kind of interesting. It's interesting what the temptation mechanic, I'm not going to sing again, but it'll be interesting what that materialises as. It's maybe it'll play into like temptation ploys. For objectives, or
a bit like the poison where you've got to have so many temptations in your discard pile or stuff like that, or after you've played your 2nd or 3rd temptation you score a glory or something like that. Maybe
my girl.
Everyone wants to see that.
I want to see my girl.
The next one, we've then seen a upgrade card again for the Slaanesh, which is the Whip of Subversion,
and this is basically turn your fighter into Hadzu, isn't it?
Slightly less powerful Hadzu.
Less powerful Hadzu, that's pretty bad.
It doesn't get much worse than that in the first place. But it's an attack action, which is range 3 and 3 swords and does 1 damage.
But in the drive back step of this attack action, instead of driving the fighter back, you can push the target up to 1 hex. Yeah. So that's a Hadzu-like ability.
It's good in that anybody who can't be driven back, you can still affect them, because you can push them instead of a drive back. I don't know how often you're in a situation where you actually want to push someone in a direction other than one of the drive back locations, though.
You can pull them towards you or push them into a lethal hex if you're not quite in the right place.
Maybe, yeah.
I have noticed that there won't be any cards with X, Y, or Z, because that's number 32. That's number 32.
Oh, there you go. That's the kind of useful information you get from us. And the last one is actually a objective card from the Sea Elves themselves.
Yes, the Means of Survival. It's a fairly standard card, I think.
It is, yeah. You could almost lift this text from many other warbands. I think the Skaven, the previous Skaven warband, had a very similar card to this.
Yeah, and I've been looking at the Void Curse, and they've got something very similar. Score this in an end phase if your warband holds 2 or more objectives and 2 or more enemy fighters are out of action. It's 2 glory. It's not the easiest one to score. Good at the end of the game. Yeah. Not so good at the beginning. Probably best in the middle, actually, when you've still got fighters left.
I was going to say, you need that point where you've done enough wounds on them.
Yeah.
It's going to be a hard one in the starter box because there's only 3 enemies.
Yeah, that's very true,
so
yes.
It's not going to balance so well against them.
Two are rubbish.
Yeah, that's true.
Seems unlikely.
Yeah, so it's maybe not going to help the balance there. So maybe the Slaanesh are going to be a little better out of the box.
Who knows?
But it's almost impossible to tell these things because that could be the rubbishest card they've got, and it's just not one you would take in Nemesis, and you just go out in another direction otherwise.
So, bit cool on Deathgorge, really. Not really. I just want to say that, but I just feel that I'm a bit tired. I'm looking forward to seeing it, looking forward to playing the models, and looking forward to see how the new cards work in the Nemesis format in particular. They did promise a few new rules, or slightly changed rules. They promised in the text somewhere, I remember reading.
Yeah, a few changes,
so
but they haven't said anything groundbreaking.
Bound to miss those.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Subtle changes, the hardest to find.
They really are. Considering they don't ever give us a summary of those things.
Why don't they do that? I bet they haven't done it. But GW, if you are watching this video, please at the beginning or even at the end, just put a summary of the changes.
Even as a PDF.
Yeah.
Even just a PDF that we could download online. If you are a previous player to this game and have Weird Hollow, check out these changes and you could just do it. It would just make our lives so much easier.
Or even just send it personally to the Agents of Sigmar, because we are a bit thick.
Yeah, very.
We don't always notice.
I've been burnt in the past with the imagery that GW have used into making you think, oh, maybe there'll be a warband with this. Because there's a picture in there and there's like a big ice giant skeleton. And there's other points where there's some imagery of maybe orcs and stuff like that. And I think orcs is a safe bet anyway, but there's so many times now where you see the imagery, you think, oh, maybe this is going to happen, and you don't get anything like that at all, and you're like, oh. So I've been exactly. So I've been burnt enough that I now look at it and go, I'm just not paying attention to it.
Well, not much charge in getting burnt in Deathgorge, I suppose.
Yes, that is true. And also Deathgorge,
it's not a great name, but I guess it doesn't really matter at the end of the day because you're playing the game anyway. I can't think of any sweets to go with Deathgorge, but I think Deathgorge is probably enough.
I think it is. I think it is. I'm also personally a little bit disappointed not to see a new realm. We're still in Gur. Everything seems to be in Gur at the minute. I would have liked to have seen us gone somewhere else, maybe into the Death realm. Or I just feel like anywhere else could have come up with much more spectacular things. But what we've got is icy, snowy.
Yeah.
Sort of
I mean, I don't really care.
No, I know
about any of that.
I mean, it's not really about even the fluff side of it. It's just the aesthetic. I feel like they could have done something better, because when we look back at Harrowdeep and Nethermaze, they were quite different. That sort of whole sort of gloomy, watery kind of theme really changed it up, and then we went back to Gur again.
Yeah, it was a shame they completely bypassed that, because there were some interesting changes there, which they then have sort of obliterated.
Yeah, and I worry that it's because they went off into that direction a bit. They went, no, it's too different. Let's go back and we'll stay in Gur forever now, and we'll have the next one will be a desert-y themed world, and then the next one will be jungles again or something. I don't know, but it's just a shame they didn't go somewhere.
So I guess we'll see, and it'll feel like it's getting, as I get older, ever faster between core sets. I'm looking forward to playing these guys. I still need to catch up on. We've barely played some of the other ones as well, so I do feel like the cycle is maybe getting a little bit out of hand. So
how are you feeling about Deathgorge? Are you really looking forward to it? Are you cool on the idea like we are? Are you looking forward to any of the warbands in particular? And are there any warbands that you would have liked to have seen that you're not seeing? So we'll see you soon in the Deathgorge.
Hey, what?
I said the Deathgorge.
Ah.
Bye.